Hi, I'm Michael Jordan with AB Friendly Company in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And you're down at the Underground Meadery. And I had a question about time frames of making mead and how things go. And man, I made one and I forgot to film it and all the stuff. So it kind of made me a little upset. But I went ahead and I got some meads ready and stuff. And I'm going to recoup because this is what I'm going to show you. So I made yesterday I made a uh, it was a guava. So I made a guava one, and that's one I didn't film. But so I make a mead, right, which usually takes us, as you can see, on an average, anywhere from let's say 20 to 30 minutes to make a gallon batch of mead. So that's about a half hour of time, right? After I make one and I'm getting ready to start to clean up, I got one that's usually done fermenting, right? See the balloon down, it's wilted. When you touch the balloon, it sucks in and stuff, right? So this was made, man, a while ago. So this was made almost 3 months ago. So you can see though it is not, it's about dormant. So the fermentation is done on this, and it's ready now to be placed in the refrigerator to cold crash. So I'll rack this into a jug, put a balloon on it, and I'll stick it in the refrigerator. When I'm there in the refrigerator, I'll bring one out. And this one has been in the refrigerator for a week. And well, I pulled it out yesterday. So by sitting yesterday, you can see the balloon because there is some residual yeast inside. But look how clear this is. I mean, this is clearing up really good. This is looking, man, I wonder if you can see that. It's clearing up pretty good. So this one, I'm going to rack into a jug and I'm going to put it back in the refrigerator, right? So that'll sit for another week. So it's usually about 30 to 60 days. I would always go 60. So I make a mead, and 60 days later, so I make a mead, and 60 days later it's here. We rack it and put it in the refrigerator for a week, and it comes out. So now we're 60 days plus 7, 67 days. So then after a week, I take it out and I rack it one more time, and I put it back in the refrigerator for a week. So now we've been in for 14 days. So now we're at 76 days or something like that, 76. And it comes out super clear like this. But I mean, these are different meats, but we're making a different meat every month. So about every 60 days, that will be the process that you're doing, is that you'll be pulling and racking off the meat. And at that time, you'll be ready to cold crash it. You cold crash it, and right about here, where you're right here, this is where we're going to bottle it. I'll rack this off, and then I will bottle it. And at this time, I would rack it off, and this would be about the time if I wanted to back sweeten it with anything, I would back sweeten it. And I would stick it back in the jug with the balloon, and I would let it age a little bit with the back sweetening to let it go, which would probably be another week to 2 weeks. So it usually takes about 90 days for you to get something that's aged or back sweetened and then aged so you can bottle it again to do something with it. So it's a 90-day time frame for mead to go all the way through to where you're going to be drinking it right away, unless you're doing lots of nutrient adding and a whole bunch of stuff to it to make that meat go really fast in 30 days. And I'll just go ahead and I'll add some, I think it's potassium sorbate to it, and it kills all the yeast right away. And I'll run it through a screen filter so I don't have to wait to to do anything and all that. And usually in 32 days, I'm drinking my mead. 30 days it's done, and 32 days I'm doing, I'm running it through a process that this is usually taking me about an hour to 2 hours on a Friday. So on a Friday, I'm able to come home. I've done a big day of work, right? I've had a whole bunch of time. I'll make a mead. Takes me about 30 minutes. And then as I'm racking stuff through, I just rack it through and I just go through. And if I have to bottle it, usually takes one of these is usually about 4 750 milliliter bottles. Right, so I'm able to just go ahead and rack those all off and put those away, and I'm done with it, And labeling is really easy. I'm just using tape, and I label them unless I'm labeling them to give out as gifts, or if we're having an event where we're throwing out some cool stuff. So I wanted to show that real quick. People were asking like, how long does it take? It was a good question. So it's 90 days drinkable, and that's usually where. And I'm working through about 4 meads in about a 2-hour time. So a half hour about each section, you can basically say, and I'm able to go ahead and work through. And as I'm going through, and I get to this last one where all of a sudden I'm either back sweetening it and setting it aside, because if I do that, there might be one that I've already back sweetened before that I might be pulling out and I might be bottling. So at that time, I would try some, right? So since I'm going to bottle some of this right here, this is a straight clover mead, right? But I'm going to rack this off. But it's so clear on all the sediments at the bottom, right? So I'm just going to give myself a little shot. Because this is something that, if I want to back sweeten it right now would be the time. Because then I can put it in a jug and age it. But we'll go ahead and we'll give her a test drive. I think it just needs to sit and age. That's pretty good. I'd say grab a good ounce. Boy, it's got a good warm in it. Yeah, it's a good warm. But that's just a straight mead. I'm going to cover that up. So I'm going to get this one ready to bottle. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put this back into, as I go through, I'll rack this across after we make one. Because that way I can clean up as I do all this. Right, and here's one that just finished fermenting that I'm going to have to rack across. So you can kind of see how we do it all in one shot. So let's go ahead and make it happen. So to start making a mead, let's get a mead. And this is a huckleberry mead made by Tim Kozad. Right, he actually came through and stopped by and dropped in, and we sampled some meads, and so this was a good one. So I'm going to pour, this is marked here. I know what this is because I've already marked them. But I'm going to pour 8 ounces in a glass. I'll have some of that a little bit later, probably. So I've got 8 ounces in a glass. I'm going to give it a little swirl here. And I'm going to smell it. Now, I just gave it a swirl and I mixed the drink. So let's go ahead and let's take a drink. And I love the legs that are good on this. Great taste. That's one of the ones he came by and drank with me. It was really good. So let's go ahead and let's start making our mead. Today we're going to be doing bananas. So let's go ahead and hit our ingredients real quick. I got 2 bananas. I got 2.5 pounds of AB friendly clover honey, but I think you could use a good orange blossom honey with this, or something like with a real fruity taste behind it. That's really good. So think about exploring different honeys to go with this, but it's getting towards the summertime, so I'm going to be throwing out some summertime stuff that's going to be really good. So let's go ahead. We got a couple bananas. We got 2.5 pounds of honey, and I've got my water all set up and ready to go. And we're using the coffee pot method of using it. If you haven't seen any of the videos before, we're using a coffee pot. It heats up the water and it just sits on the hot plate. So when I'm prepping everything to kind of get the start, I have some water going, and it just makes everything move a lot faster and easier for all of us. For the yeast, I'm going to be using the Red Star Premier Blanc Yellow Pack. Right. This one also is good with a good, I think it's the 1164D, I think is what it is. I think that's another good one to use with this one. But we're going to go ahead and we've got our fermentation device that we're going to be using. I have my lid. Remember, always keep your lids to everything, recycle, reuse, and they come in handy as you go through stuff, right? So I have my fermentation device, and I think we're ready to start. When it comes to the equipment, I have a fermentation device that we're going to be brewing completely in. We're using a 1-gallon glass jug to do about a 1-gallon batch of mead. Also with this, we're going to have a testing vial. This allows us to put the mead in it to get a starting gravity. If you don't want to have any of that stuff, it doesn't matter. It's going to make alcohol by the balloons. When it goes up like that, it's making alcohol. It's one sure while to make it. So we're going to be able to test the specific gravity with our specific gravity meter, with our hydrometer is what it's called. We're going to have our temperature gauge going, and our airlock. And we use a balloon. When you're doing as many small batches as I'm doing, and you've got them all over on the table and stuff, yeah, the balloons all bounce into each other and the airlocks work really cool. But when you're making a pomegranate or a guava, I got this nice guava in there, the seeds and stuff in that guava, if they get caught in that airlock, and I'm not down here checking them every couple hours, and the fermentation really takes off, and that seed gets in that airlock, boom, man, it's going up, and all the pressure and all the stuff goes all over my table. If it can fit through this top of this jug right here, if it can come up through there, it's going to be caught in the balloon, and the balloon can take it over, and it just kind of falls to the side, and it works out way better that way. So that's one reason why I use the balloon. If you want to put a hose in here and stick it in a bucket full of water and it blows onto the bucket, same thing. It just doesn't make a big mess. So we'll be using a balloon for an airlock. Of course, I've got my recipe sitting here, my pen. I've got my scissors, right? And I think that's all your equipment. So basically, we've had a little sip. We went through the ingredients, took a sip. We went ahead and went through the equipment, took a sip. Now we're going to make the mead. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the honey in the jug, right? And the one thing I've learned about the open mouth jug, if you put it really close and everything pours in really fast and it starts up, right? You see how the honey hub goes? And if you ever get it, so if you're using a mason jar or something big like a big mouth bottle, or you happen to squeeze the jug where the honey comes out really fast like this, if you pull it up after you do that and let the stream start to go, you'll have better luck, because if it gets all over the top of the jug and the air wants to come out of the jug, the honey will run down the sides, and that's it makes a huge mess. So go ahead and pull it up a little ways, get yourself some honey to flow before you just start really dumping it in, because that way you can see what you have. And since I'm a beekeeper, I recycle a lot of my bottles, and for mead making, just because it's easier to measure out, that I like to use 2.5 pounds. Makes my meads a little bit drier, my alcohol about 15 to 17%, depending what other sugars and stuff I add to it to make it that way. But I like it about 15%, so I like about 2.5 pounds. And for every pound, you get about 5 pounds or 5% alcohol. So by adding 2.5 pounds, I'm looking at around 12 to 15%. So that's what I like to do. So if I get the honey right here, I like to get it right over the jug, and I give it a turn and I lift, and then I don't make a mess of honey everywhere. So that's one reason why I wanted to show, keep the honey from boiling over, and that way you can collect it. Now what we're going to use the coffee pot for is we put some water in here, and I put about 4 cups of water in here. And I'm going to use about 2 cups to pour in this jug. What that allows me to do is with the hot water, I'm able to get all the residual sugars out of here and start dissolving the honey to use for the mead. One reason why I like the plastic jugs is that if you squeeze it and then screw your lid on it, when you shake it out, you see it just puffs right back out, right? If you're using glass, you got to be really careful because it'll shoot out and steam out over the top. That's what's happening is the steam's going through there. And it's with the really, the water's pretty hot. I just ran it through a coffee pot. I mean, McDonald's got sued over that stuff. So my plastic is all puffed back out. I've got the honey all dissolved in here. And I'm just going to pour it right back in the jug. And I will wash and clean this out. And I will probably fill it with honey again for the next mead batch. Now we're going to go ahead and add, that was only a cup of water because it said 4 cups. So I've only put 1 cup of water in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put another cup in here. So I put a cup basically to get the honey out of the container of 2.5 pounds. And now I put a cup of water in here in our fermentation device, and I put the lid back on this. And what we're going to do is we're going to dissolve the honey. So if you're playing the drinking game, this is a good time to drink. And when you're doing this, you can see the honey from going in like a taffy form, swirling around in there to dissolving to where the coloration of whatever honey you is water. See, it's all dissolved in there now. So that's really cool. So since we shook it all up, we agitated the stuff. Now, I just peel my bananas open. And since I froze them, so they're a little yicky. Still a little frozen on the back end. Yeah, see there. I froze my bananas earlier, so they're kind of, and I like to peel my bananas from the back end. I don't know why. It's always been easier for me. All right, I'm going to throw these in the composter. That's the composter over there. Okay, let me go ahead. All right, let me wipe my hands. That's one good reason why I have a sink right here. It works out great. Okay. Put my lid back on. I'm going to go ahead and take another drink because we're going to shake it. Anytime you add an adjunct or something to it, now's the time to do it. That way it kind of pounds it, pulverizes it with the honey, and kind of makes the honey kind of mix up and stuff. It's like add marbles. You can't add marbles and kind of spin it around, and it helps it break it down a lot more. Nice. So we put our 2 bananas in, and now we're going to go ahead and fill our jug up with water. We're using water from a well and through a osmosis machine that goes through and purifies the water and stuff. I prefer using bottled water from a store because it usually comes with no great filterization or anything. And if you're going to use home tap water, let it air out for at least a week and let it to get to where all the chemicals and fluorides and chlorine and stuff kind of get out of there. I'm not saying tap water's bad, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just that it's got stuff to made to kill bacteria. You know, you're kind of inducing bacteria, a food source for it. All right, so what's super cool is I like doing my 1 gallons this way, is because now, as you can see the separation. You can see where the bananas and stuff are sitting on the bottom away from the honey and everything. All right. Now you're going to fill this up, leaving about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of head space for fermentation. But you will probably have some pretty good activation. And you'll probably have some stuff go up into your balloon. So right now we've made a straight banana mead. Hopefully in the future we'll be able to do some cooler stuff with the banana. Kind of liking it. Let's go ahead and take our specific gravity. Oh, I got the banana, see. All right. Let's get our. Now I always put my specific gravity meter back in its tube after washing it and stuff off because it's expensive. I don't want it broken. So as you see, I got my test tube. I have now filled it up 3/4 of the way up. That way we can see this float. As you see, it drops up and down. Hopefully we can get something around 9 to 10% that we can start off with the banana. Now I spin that to spin all the bubbles away from it to kind of give me an okay reading. And it's just an okay reading. It's nothing drastic. So this one says 1.065. So that's around 6, 7, 8.5. So that's about 8.5. So that's not too bad, right? We're hoping that as the bananas dissolve and stuff with it, they give it a little more flavor to the meads and stuff. So this one might be one we'll have to play with some back sweetening. But it should come out pretty dry. Should be fun. So we're going to go ahead and add some Red Star yeast to it. This will make it pretty dry. Now, this would be one that if you want to add, I like cherry 7-Up too, right? That you can kind of, what they call, make spritzers with. So I'm going to go ahead and add the dry drop yeast. Now I could take and add this with my yeast and let it make a starter batch and then dump it in. But I haven't had any problems with the dry drop yeast with Red Star yeast. With the combination of this, here are the variables, right? You can use many different types of honey with this. I prefer citrus honey or really sweet honey to go with this. There's also variable of bananas. You can start off with 2 bananas and go up to 6 if you want. Or just go ahead and get some baby food banana stuff and start with something smaller. Remember, everything's got to be filtered out. The last thing is the type of additive of liquid you want to add. You know, we're going with straight water here, but you can add a flavored water with it to mix with the banana. You've seen us make a chocolate banana split where we used strawberry banana puree water and went ahead and added some chocolate to it. So the last variable would be the yeast. There are many different yeasts that you could use on this to make this happen. And we always use the reliable Red Star yeast. If you ever hear from them, tell them that I'd like a sponsorship. I use a lot of their yeast. As you can see, I mean, we're doing more than 52 meats in a year, that's for sure. So I've got this all set up where now we've got our specific gravity and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and write this all down on my recipe. So you always want to keep an index card or something available with a recipe on it. So this is our banana mead. It's 2.5 pounds of honey, 2 bananas, water, and the Red Star Premier Blanc yeast. We're going to put today's date on it, which has had it on it, and our starting gravity, which we said was 1.065. Potential, I think we said 9.5. Okay, so we've got this all set up. We'll go ahead and stick that on our jug because that's what we're starting out with. And I'm going to go ahead and dump this back in on my yeast. One thing that I will do, I should have did it while it was in the vessel. Things that we learn as we keep going, right? So when you put this in your vessel, you should take out your thermometer and you should put it in there. So we'll have to drink for a mistake. Ooh, that hurt us bad on our drinking game. So I usually put the thermometer in the vessel and I get my temperature to drop my yeast in. But I already know with the warm bananas and stuff and adding the thing, I'm well in the temperature zone for this, that this would be pretty good. I think the activation of the yeast would be really good. I like anywhere from 68 to 78 degrees. It has to do with the climate and altitude that I'm at. A lot of people like their yeast drop anywhere from 78 to about 85 degrees. It just depends on what your yeast pack is, climate and altitude. Brew a little bit, use your yeast quite a bit, and you'll see what you have. So let's go ahead and see what I got. I'm going to go ahead and mix this. For those of you that are drinking, right, we've put in the yeast and stuff. We go ahead and we give the jug a little, it's called the jostle. We kind of get everything kind of mixed up in there really good. As you can see, it's already starting to foam up and look really good. Since we did the jostle, well, there's our banana mead. Not much to it, really simple. This is something that you can burn off some honey with, and you can either get bananas from the grocery store. It's usually something you have lying around that your kids brought home in their lunch bag and didn't eat it. You know, waste our economy and our food. Anyway, I'm Michael Jordan with AB Friendly Company, and you're down here at the Underground Meadery. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Hopefully you could actually understand the display of the 90-day time frame usually before where I really start drinking it or really back age it hard for a good year because it's tasting so good. So you've seen how we go through about 4 meads to 5 meads if we're back sweetening doing that. I really appreciate, so I really appreciate Tim Kozad for coming by and dropping off some Meads. The buttered beer we made with butterscotch, the huckleberry. I'm actually going to throw some more in my glass. This one is the black cherry, the pumpkin spice. I mean, thanks for stopping by, Tim, to the Underground Meadery and kind of sharing what you got going on. And I want to give we're going to do another display here real quick to Dan W., right? Weldon, right? Weldon, right? Thanks for sending us the magical honeys that you sent us. I got a little bit left of this here. This is Christmas berry honey. It is super awesome, right? And I had some blood honey. He sent me some blood honey from Hawaii. And I filmed it and did it all for the Wyoming Bee College. It was how we made meads in the underground basement. And this is the blood honey mead. Look at that. It is red. That is just from the honey itself. It is a brilliant, cool looking red. The honey was all red itself. It was super cool. So as we're looking at it, right, we're watching the mead go and stuff. So it's really doing cool. So Dan, thanks for sending us the exotic honey for us to try. Thanks, Pam Morgan Jordan from Elk Grove, California, to send us the guava that we tried. Man, I should have filmed it, but I wasn't thinking at the time. But thanks for sending the guava. If you ever have any more, send them. We'll try to film it next time. Thanks for tuning in. Share this with everybody. Give it a big like and subscribe. Tell people about what we're doing here and getting on some cool products and teaching you how to do some meads and seeing some of the cool ideas that are out there for making meads and what things can be come up with. That as we get going, you're going to meet some really cool brewers, and you're also going to get to see some exotic honeys being used and kind of outside the box thinking. So kind of catch some of the other issues and some of the other videos that we've made, and catch you later on the Underground Meadery. And look, that's the drinking game. It's the end of the cast.